You know, when you play a visual novel, it always has a slow start, maybe a little dull and even boring sometimes, but by the end of it, you probably have your mind blown by an absolutely insane story that just came out of nowhere. That is exactly how I would describe 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. As someone that's dabbled in quite a bit of visual novels, 13 Sentinels isn't exactly that. A large portion of this game can be described as a 2D slice of life walking simulator with mild visual novel elements. The characters go to school, they hang out with their friends, but somehow by the end of the main plot, you'll be fighting giant kaijus in giant robots, and time travel will become normal. 13 Sentinels can be said to be split into two games. The more noteworthy story mode and the tactical gameplay part. But right now, we're primarily gonna be talking about the story mode. When you first lay eyes on the game, it has this luster that you just haven't quite seen before in other games. The background art and the characters has this lush and almost water painted aesthetic to it. A lot of this is accredited to Vanillaware founder and director of 13 Sentinels, George Kamitani. I can't say I know what goes on behind closed doors, but what I do know is that doing a little bit of research, Mr. George is the primary creative force behind the art direction and the character designs for most of the Vanillaware games. For a visual novel or JRPG game, it is very apparent which games George has worked on and those that he has not worked on. Every single Vanillaware game is styled in this dim, nostalgic, hand-painted art style, while having the characters be rigged in a way that makes them feel three-dimensional. This is accomplished by something called the layered parallax effect. This technique creates a 3D effect in a 2D game by separating the environments into multiple distinct planes. So for example, in this classroom full of desks, you get to move around between the desks, creating an effect where you move into and out of the screen, even though you're actually just moving left and right with different speeds. There's a lot of attention to detail in this game if you're paying attention to it. The dusty and mildewy classrooms, the windy leaves, and the bright warm patches through the windows makes you feel like remembering some kind of nostalgic dream, which is exactly what the game is going for, which we will discuss in the later parts of this game. Audibly, when you move close enough, you can hear Iori's sleeping noises, which sounds very creepy when you say it out loud. When you move close enough to these group of girls, you are eavesdropping on some random throwaway one-time conversation that might potentially be important. 13 Sentinels is the type of game that relies on environmental storytelling. It emphasizes on narrative details through gameplay, as well as through dialogue as well. Throughout the start, a lot of things won't make sense. Juro, our current main character, is a normal high schooler, but he is an unreliable narrator. Iori, the girl that was fighting kaijus in her sentinel in the opening cutscene, is seen sleeping away without a care in the world. You are immediately expected to piece together information that doesn't quite fit the whole. And that is exactly where the game wants you to be at. The central narrative primarily relies on mystery to keep the audience engaged. What exactly is attacking Earth? They say it's a kaiju, but what truly are they? Why are these children the ones piloting the Sentinels? And why do all these characters keep talking to this cat? Throughout this game, you play as 13 characters with each of their chapters. You play through multiple routes like in a visual novel for each character. In these chapters, they give you little nods and references to events that you have absolutely no idea about.
This lets you match what you know to form a bigger narrative. Like, for example, when you are playing as Juro, you are constantly followed by his best friend, Kyuta Shiba. Sure, Shiba is a relatively normal guy if you compare him to the rest of the cast, but there are a few things wrong with him. When you want to talk to the other characters, the game almost forces you to get rid of him first, almost like Juro is afraid of him. Even when he is around, when you talk to the other characters like Amiguchi, no one seems to really react to what Shiba has to say.
I mean, they don't even think he exists.
This gets even weirder when you play as other characters. You don't even see Shiba around.
So, when this happens, and it turns out that Shiba is an hallucination powered by an AI lodged in the nanomachines in Juro's brain,
It becomes brain melting in a way, but somehow still lets it make perfect sense, like the game was building up towards it. There is something special here, I think. The feeling of the mystery being completely solvable with the clues you have, while having the solution of the mystery be absolute batshit insane is, quite something. It feels like every single event has been given enough clues for you to predict what happens next, yet when all is said and done, the game one-ups you, giving you a completely insane answer that leaves you with more questions than answers. This constant state of confusion and clarity is further muddied by the unreliable narratives of our characters, which we will get to later.
but while the larger mystery keeps spiraling outwards, to keep these earlier chapters from being too suspense, it balances all that confusion with surprisingly well written and charming character moments. Like Iori accidentally, okay, this isn't that well written, but Iori accidentally eavesdropping on this definitely non-homoerotic conversation between Juro and Amiguchi is pretty funny, okay? Who is Amiguchi? He is a popular, rich simp. Those three words describe him pretty accurately. I like him. He is probably one of the more likable main characters in this game because a lot of the other male characters sort of just have this overlapping, emotionally stunted main character energy, so Amiguchi is pretty refreshing. Also, to make things interesting, I'm also gonna be ranking all of these characters by the end of this. So yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess. Anyways, in the current stage of the story, all we know is that the main cast has weird dreams of a future world. As Amiguchi puts it, all of these dreams or memories we, the player, witness aren't chronological, but they are, however, connected. These dreams are usually about notable events of their future selves that involve time traveling, AI, androids, or, the Sentinels. So now there is some semblance of a reason to why children are the one fighting the kaiju. Yeah, so I think now is a pretty good time to talk about the other side of this game. When discussing the tactical gameplay part, it is usually described as less impressive as the sprawling narrative genius of the story. You aren't gonna be spending as much time on it as well, so that's something to think about. But what I will say is that while replaying this game for the video, this part of the game is heavily overlooked and underrated. The gameplay part of the game looks like those old sci-fi arcade bullet hells mixed with real-time Fire Emblem style tactical gameplay. The futuristic user interface along with the simple and scratchy gameplay makes you feel like an actual tactical genius taking charge of a legion of mech that launches missiles and puts up EMP barrier fields. The main gameplay of this part consists of you commanding these 13 Sentinels. You get it? Because there's 13 Sentinels? Okay, yeah, that wasn't funny. As time goes on and as you unlock more memories and characters in the story mode, you add more Sentinels to your roster. Some have different skill sets and some have different effects. Some are focused on long range and some are melee specialists. This goes on until the end of the first set of levels when you finish unlocking all the Sentinels. From that point on, you get to modify your Sentinels with different stats and armament. The biggest downside to this part is that you don't actually see the Sentinels or the D-Force in action. They're literally just dots on the field, on the UI. Even so, this helps out the earlier part of the game by concealing the identity of the Sentinels and the D-Force. And as much as I would like to say that, oh, the developers planned this all out from the start and it's all on purpose, that's probably not true. They probably just, they want to spend that much capital and energy on like this part of the game. Like, they are a small studio after all. As much as I would like to have seen the Sentinels in action, I really can't complain too much on this part of the game. For what it is, it's perfectly fine. The levels are suitably challenging. The modifications you can make on the Sentinels are surprisingly fun as well. The gravity missiles, that's just fun to use. The combat of the Sentinels each feel very satisfying to play as. The enemy variety is quite wide as well. It keeps the gameplay loop fresh and exciting. During the first set of levels, you don't quite know what you are fighting. Sure, you hear the characters describe it as mighty kaijus, aliens from another world, or enormous robots, but there are no concrete explanations for their existence. Same goes for the Sentinels. You see and use them to fight off the enemy, but you don't know where it comes from, how it appeared, or anything about it at all. And on top of all that, in this mode, you constantly hear the characters mentioning and referencing new names and events that you have absolutely zero idea on. Natsuno Minami is a cheery and happy high school girl. She is my favorite character. Plot-wise, she's one of the more central characters that a lot of the major events revolve around. But even so, she's just out there being an absolute joy, goofing around and going on her adventures with her alien/robot sidekick BJ, which in reality is actually Kentaro Miura, another one of the playable characters' artificially constructed consciousness trapped in a robot. Everyone is locked in trying to solve this potentially world-ending mystery, and she's just out there coming up with these crazy conspiracy theories about Area 51 and Men in Black. Her chapters are about finding one of the missing Sentinels that BJ is supposed to be piloting. So to help her small robot friend, Natsuno is led to Tokisaka Shrine. BJ starts operating some glowing blue interface thingy. Slowly, blue lights envelop the shrine gate. Natsuno is transported to 2064 where things do not look so good. News reporters are talking about giant mechanical spiders gliding across the skies, government officials declaring a state of emergency, and Natsuno herself sees these creatures with all their horror and majesty. Natsuno also travels to different time periods, to the 1940s and the 2100s, each world obliterated by these monsters she dubs tripods from the War of the Worlds. I really like Natsuno's chapters. Each of them has a distinctly her vibe. The other characters also have chapters that are wildly different from each other, like Iori, who is this innocent romantic dreamer that is in love with this edgy badass Ei Sekigahara, or Megumi Yakushizi, also a shy high school girl that is being tricked by a talking cat to shoot people with a magical gun. Or Miura, who is this shell-shocked child soldier who's escaped to the future. And just talking about the last sentence, but I have never think that I would ever say a sentence like that ever in my life. And that just goes to show how insane some of the plot points can be in this game. The wild narrative contrast between the chapters is super interesting to see. Playing as characters with wildly different backgrounds and ways of thinking is just something that's, interesting. It isn't every day where you see a time traveler, a shoujo protagonist, and a child soldier in the same game after all. Since Natsuno just really likes UFOs and aliens, a lot of the way she perceives the abnormalities are the Sentinels are good guys and they want to help us. The kaijus are the bad aliens. So part of the fun is just to discern what to believe from each of the characters' chapters. The main plot point during this stage of the game is time traveling. Time travel in this game can only be done in certain places, Tokisaka Shrine being one of them. Characters can only travel through time linearly at 5 different points: the 1940s, the 1980s, the 2020s, the 2060s, and the 2100s. So, what I mean from linearly is if you're in the 1980s and you want to go back to the 1940s, the only way is to go back in time on that exact day. So if you're in 1981 on the April of 2nd, you can only go back in time to 1941 on the April of 2nd. I hope that makes sense. It isn't really time traveling in the normal sense. It's almost like teleporting, but just to different places under the illusion of going to different time periods. But small things doesn't add up. Dents on pillars that should be there aren't there. Raised buildings are somehow still standing. You slowly start to think to yourself, the past doesn't quite connect to the present. Amiguchi lives his life like usual. He gets these weird dreams of the future again and suspects something is wrong, but not wrong enough where he's bothered to actually do something about it, but life goes on. After getting tipped off by an interstellar space idol called Miyuki Inaba, he gets this idea to test things out. Along with Yuki Takamiya, Amiguchi decides to head to the countryside where he spends his childhood, but as Amiguchi and Yuki were sharing their memories of their childhood, things started to get a little weird. They used to climb a specific tree in a specific place. They collect the same cicadas behind the same backyard. They have the same memories of their grandparents. Both of their memories are exactly the same. Sure, life in the countryside can't be that different, but when you think more into it, it's like the fabric of their memories are oddly generic and eerily similar, sort of like how NPCs in a game doesn't have that fleshed out of a backstory. As they were still on their motorcycle nearing the edge of the city, they finally see it, a mechanical labyrinth stretching before their eyes. One that goes on and on forever and ever. One that you cannot escape from, for it is everything that is beyond. A horrible realization sets in between our two characters. Everything our characters knew about themselves and everything about the world has been fabricated by this giant labyrinth. This chapter is framed very, very well and is also positioned at the perfect place in the story. Because before all this, the main theory to explain all the abnormalities was time travel. But like I said earlier, a lot of the things doesn't add up. If the kaiju destroyed the world in the 1940s, then how does civilization still exist in the 1980s? Instead, what is happening is that there are actually different areas that are separated from each other. Each area is set in a different time period. So, when, say, a character is time traveling, he is actually being transported to a different area. That also means that the D-Force are actually going to area or sector to sector and destroying each of them. So that's pretty bad news.
None of this is ever told to you outright. All of this is figured out by the player, but the amount of context clues to back it up is more than enough. Meet Tomi Kisaragi, sarcastic and slightly weird teenager living a normal high school life. Also, meet Tomi Kisaragi, a singer slash idol that is also known as Miyuki Inaba, the interstellar idol that appeared in one of Amiguchi's chapters. Also, meet Tomi Kisaragi, one of the 15 residents of the 2188 space colony. She is a terraforming researcher for Project Arc and designed the second phase of the Inters. Oh my fucking god, this is boring. Holy, I'm not gonna tell you all that, okay? Yeah, she is smart, okay? That's all you need to know. So, how are there three copies of the same characters in wildly different times, presumably? If one of her is alive in the 1940s, how is she alive nearly 2.5 centuries in the future? Towards the very end of the game, we find out that humanity has basically gone extinct because of a nanomachine war slash plague that we don't really know that much about, other than the fact that Earth is destroyed. 2188 Kisaragi is not a clone, not a time traveler, but the actual real person Tomi Kisaragi. She is one of the people responsible for preserving humanity through Project Arc, along with the originally thought to be future versions of our main characters. They work together to build an interstellar spaceship to find a habitable planet for humans. The spaceship consists of 5 sectors, which may sound familiar. What has 5 in it? 5 time periods. That's what they have. But slight problem. The nearest habitable planet is like 12,000 light years away, so the remaining 15 humans stored their DNA on the spaceship and sent it across the void. 12,000 light years later, the spaceship starts cloning these original 15 humans. 13 of those humans are the main characters of this game. The spaceship is the simulation. Yeah, that is it, bro. That is the entire plot, okay? Yeah, my mind is blown. So yeah, this has enormous implications. Every character that isn't the main 13 are AI constructs made by a machine called Universal Control. Also, the D-Force are actually man-made terraforming machines gone haywire caused by a bug that was planted by Ryoko Shinonome, the original Ryoko Shinonome, which was also a character from the original 1313 Sentinels. Holy shit, that is such a fucking confusing sentence. So, yeah, finally, every single question has been answered with a pretty beautifully wrapped up narrative, I would like to say. For such a big, ambitious narrative undertaking at a scale that literally transcends time and space could be wrapped up so satisfying is a genuinely rare sight. I don't see that a lot. While the mystery might be wrapped up, our characters are still in a pretty depressing situation. The entire human race is extinct. They are 12,000 light years away from Earth. Everything they knew was a lie, and now they are awaiting their impending doom thanks to past Ryoko Shinonome. But even after defeating the D-Force, they are also subjected to, a completely new life on a new planet. So yeah, I'm done. I don't really have anything more to say. I don't really have like a feel-good meta narrative ending that's cool and rewarding. I mean, I really can't make one up. Again, I really didn't expect to witness one of the best sci-fi mystery epics of our modern day from a game that I just decided to randomly pick up one day. Like, sure, I heard this game was good, and yeah, I know it's like has some sci-fi elements, but mostly I was
Sort of just expecting like a pretty chill, relaxing game, but yeah, I ended up with one of the craziest sci-fi stories that I've ever witnessed. If anything, if you're taking anything away from this video, then it should be to try random video games that you think you might like. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.